When I first started solo hiking 6 years ago, I thought I knew exactly what to expect. Peace, calm, nature's calming embrace, pines whispering secrets, rivers echoing softly, and a silence so deep it made you feel tiny but somehow safe, like the world had paused just for you. But I was dead wrong, because one day, deep in a forgotten gorge in West Virginia, that peace shattered, and what I uncovered there haunts me to this day. If you think hiking is all sunshine and fresh air, buckle up. This story will pull you right into the edge of terror and maybe beyond. I remember that morning like it was yesterday. The sun peeking through the leaves, warm beams dancing on my boots as they crunched along the trail. That mix of nerves and excitement, like stepping into a movie where you were the only character on screen. I was hungry for adventure, for that raw connection with nature, untouched and wild. But the deeper I ventured, something started to shift. The birds, my usual companions, suddenly fell silent. The whispers of the forest faded. It was as if the woods themselves were holding their breath, waiting. Then a sudden sharp sound, an unfamiliar dragging noise echoed somewhere in the gorge. Not close, not far, just enough to make my heart leap into my throat. I wasn't alone. Something was moving in the shadows, but what? I wanted to turn back, but I couldn't, not yet. Curiosity pushed me forward. As I carefully made my way down into the gorge, something caught my eye, a narrow, carved path etched into the slope. It wasn't on any map, no sign of human hands marked it besides the path itself. It looked ... forgotten, abandoned, dangerous. The air grew colder. Goosebumps rose on my skin like icy fingers. That's when it hit me, a sharp, metallic clang. Like an axe biting deep into wood, and then another, and another, slow, deliberate, angry. My heart froze. Where was I? No campground around, no cabin, no ranger in sight, but someone was chopping, or ... maybe worse. I crouched low behind a boulder, barely daring to breathe. A low murmur floated through the trees, but it wasn't words, just guttural mumbling, uneven breathing. Whoever it was, they were close, too close. Then I saw him. A man, tall, broad, covered in dirt and grime from head to toe. Like he belonged more to the forest than to any town or trail. His axe swung rhythmically, every movement slow and purposeful. But he wasn't chopping firewood, no. He was driving that blade into something on the ground, something I couldn't make out. With every grunt and swing, my stomach rolled in knots. Fear turned into ice in my veins. Just as I thought I could slip away unnoticed, my foot caught on a hidden root. The snap sounded like a gunshot through the still air. He stopped chopping instantly, his head jerking up like a beast who just sensed its prey. He sniffed the air, hunting. My breath hitched. Would he find me? Would I survive this moment? Step by step, I tried to slip backwards, but then another snap. Closer this time. His wild eyes locked onto mine, and then he raised the axe. I ran. Branches sliced into my face. Dirt slipped under my boots. Behind me, the forest erupted in chaos, the man crashing through brush, screaming in a tongue I couldn't understand. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. I didn't dare look back. I just ran for my life. Just when I thought I'd made it, the ground beneath me gave way. I tumbled down a steep embankment, twisting and crashing through thorny bushes. Pain exploded in my ribs, but I couldn't stop. I scrambled up, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. And then a shadow loomed at the top. Was he there? Was it the end? Finally, I hit the main trail and didn't stop until my car was in sight. Hands shaking so hard, I dropped my keys twice before unlocking the door. I locked myself inside and stared at the tree line, waiting for him to burst out. But he never did. The forest went back dark and silent, as if nothing had happened. I never reported it. Why? Maybe because I wasn't sure what I saw. Was it a nightmare? Was it something darker, a secret the woods were hiding? Whatever it was, it wanted to stay buried. And if my boot hadn't snapped that twig, I might be alive to tell the tale.
"3 years ago, I stumbled onto something terrifying in the woods near Minnesota, something I still can't fully explain. What was supposed to be a simple, peaceful afternoon hike turned into one of the most unsettling experiences of my life. And if you think nature is just calm and quiet, this story will change your mind forever. The day started off innocent enough. Crisp air that made every sound sharper, every breath feel cleaner. The kind of cold that wakes you up inside. The forest was eerily still, too still. The treetops barely swayed. The wind seemed to avoid that part of the woods, like it was scared to disturb whatever was waiting there. At the time, I thought it was just the calm before a storm. I was wrong, dead wrong. About an hour into the hike, I reached a clearing where sunlight barely kissed the forest floor. That's when I heard the first sound that didn't belong. Deep, throaty growls, echoing from the tree line behind me. Wolves, at least 3 of them. But these weren't the usual territorial snarls I'd heard before. These growls sounded ... afraid, sharp, frantic. Not aimed at me ... but something deeper in the woods. Something I wasn't seeing. I froze. Suddenly, the underbrush exploded with movement. Huge gray shapes burst into the clearing. Wolves, sprinting past me so fast their bodies blurred. Their ears were pinned back, eyes wide with terror. And they didn't even look at me. They tore through the clearing, running from something I couldn't see. Then I noticed it. Smoke. Not campfire smoke. Not the usual mist. This was thick, black, moving low along the ground like a living, breathing thing. It swirled around the trees, rolling forward in strange pulses as if it was stalking the wolves. At first, I thought maybe a fire had started, but there was no heat, no burning smell, just that unnatural darkness creeping silently through the forest. I was frozen in place, every instinct screaming at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The smoke drifted closer. The moment it crossed into the clearing, everything changed. The air grew heavy, cold, electric-like. The sky just before a thunderstorm, but stronger, almost suffocating. That's when I heard it. A whisper, not a voice, something crawling inside my head. Not words, exactly. More like a feeling, a warning, a threat. I can't describe it fully, but it felt like the forest itself wanted me gone. Something inside me snapped. I turned and ran, heart hammering, breath burning. Every few seconds, I glanced back. The smoke was coming, sliding toward me like a predator that had chosen its prey, chasing me. I didn't stop until I burst from the woods into the parking lot, collapsing next to my car, gasping for air. And when I looked back, the smoke was gone. Not fading, gone like it had never been there at all. For weeks, I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, fog, shadows, panic. But wolves don't flee from shadows. And whatever that smoke was, it hunted, it chose, it followed. The worst part, I still don't understand what all of it means. The wolves running, the smoke pursuing, the whisper in my mind, the suffocating pressure in the air. It all felt connected, like pieces of a puzzle I can't solve. And every time I think about going back to that trail, a cold, sinking feeling grips me, because whatever I saw that day, it's still there, waiting. Back when I was younger, camping with my friends in the Ozarks was our favorite summer tradition. We'd always choose the same hidden spot deep in the woods, miles from any trail where we could pretend the whole forest was ours. That year, everything felt perfect. The long hike in cicadas humming in the thick summer heat, and the thrill of a weekend without a single responsibility. We set up camp just before dusk, laughing and joking around the crackling fire, completely unaware how quickly that perfect night would turn into the most terrifying experience of our lives. It all started with a scream, but not a human scream, not really. A high, broken cry that echoed off the trees like something caught between a howl and a shriek. We all froze. The fire crackled louder, and then silence. An eerie silence that swallowed the woods whole. For a moment, we just stared at each other, waiting for that scream again. But it never came. Trying to shake off the creeping dread, we joked nervously. Maybe it was a coyote, maybe a mountain lion. But deep inside, we all felt the same heavy pressure sinking into our stomachs. Something was out there, something watching. Hours passed, and the forest seemed to shift around us, like the darkness itself was leaning in closer, thickening. That's when one of my friends whispered, "Don't look fast, just turn slowly." I followed his gaze towards the tree line on the far side of the clearing, and there she was. A woman, tall, unnaturally tall. Her limbs stretched longer than anyone should have, moving stiffly, awkwardly, as if her body belonged to some distorted shadow of a person. Her hair hung in damp, tangled ropes, obscuring most of her face. She didn't move or speak. She just stood, staring into the firelight, eyes locked on us. Before we could even react, a second figure slid out from the darkness beside her. A man, shirtless, pale, his skin almost translucent. In his hand, a machete dragged along the rocky ground, creating a jagged, scraping sound that sent chills down my spine. The tall woman tilted her head towards him, and for a fleeting moment, they seemed to communicate. We grabbed whatever we could, flashlights, backpacks, stick sand, sprinted into the pitch black beyond the fire's glow. Branches flailed wildly, slapping our faces. The man's footsteps thudded heavy behind us, accompanied by the awful scraping of that machete clawing through roots and rocks. Every time I risked a glance behind, I caught a glimpse of those long limbs, that pale, skin-shadowy shapes moving too fast, too unnatural for the dark. We ran until the river, miles away, where we finally collapsed on the bank, gasping and shaking. No footsteps behind us, no figures in the trees, but none of us dared go back. At sunrise, we left the woods and told the story at the ranger station. The ranger listened silently, his face unreadable. Then he said something I'll never forget. There are no cabins, no homes, nothing out there for miles. Then quietly, almost like a warning, you boys shouldn't camp in that area anymore. We never returned, and none of us ever talk about that night unless someone brings it up first, and even then, we all fall silent fast. Because whatever those two were, they were people at all. They weren't travelers, they weren't lost, they weren't harmless. They were looking for something or someone. And worst of all, we know they probably still are.
Don't forget to subscribe, because there are more stories like this, waiting to be told.